And we're back with me, Johnny McMurray, on the On the Spot Football Podcast with another fantastic guest. One for the Cliftonville and the Glentoran fans, an absolute legend at both clubs, Tim McCann.
How are you, Johnny? All good?
Tim, it's absolutely amazing to see you, mate.
Yeah, you're looking really well in those these
Flares.
1970s flares. Yeah,
You know what? There's a blazer that goes with it.
no way.
It's oversized. I couldn't wear it.
You're probably the only one that could pull them off. Maybe that'd be a wee bit long for me, you know.
What do you think next
Actually,
week, guys club?
I have a wee bit of water in my eye from when you are walking in and the wind caught your bottom of your trousers and hit me in the eye there.
Whipped you in the head. Like you got whipped like.
Right in the eye.
So anybody that sees Tim McCann staring weirdly at the camera, it's because I whipped him about here.
Oh, brilliant.
How are you?
Yes, good. Probably tough weekend after Saturday, but listen, that's what football does, highs and lows, you know, and because of kids, it kind of affects your mood, you know.
Yeah.
Whether you're going to have a good weekend, whether you're not, you know, where you're going to go home and, you know,
Get the booze out.
just sit and have a few bevies.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of goes from, for when we'll have a few bevies and for losing we'll have a few bevies, you know, just.
Either way, it's a win.
But it was just a difficult one to take, you know, and, you know, we even spoke about the teams after. Look, we did not get in the second place on Saturday because of Saturday's result. That was an amalgamation of missed chances that we had previous, whether it was away to Dungannon, home to Crusaders, you know, we were 2-0 up against Lauren at home and things like that. So it's just an amalgamation of things. But listen, it's a funny old game and football's there to test you. So listen, we gather around, take a few days off and get ourselves back together and get ready for the playoffs.
Well, the Irish Cup's this weekend, Saturday, and then you'll be back in Tuesday, I take it?
Aye, the matches I think are Tuesday the 6th of May and Saturday the 10th of May, my wedding anniversary. So fingers crossed we're in the
Plenty of booze.
we're in the final.
Absolutely.
There. So hopefully it's an early kickoff.
Good.
Or even a Friday night, I'll take that.
So Friday night would be good, actually. Give you the weekends, you know what I mean? You'll be sitting in that hot tub.
Absolutely. It broke on me.
No way.
Honestly, took it out, pumped it up, and obviously the air just wouldn't go in it. And I was looking everywhere, reading all the instructions, what we're doing wrong. Just told, probably used it too many times.
That's it. You lived in it, to be fair. That way.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that there because there's one of the funny moments that we had at Lauren, and you were just prime example of you in your hot tub. But listen, there's plenty to talk about on last week's game. Big chances, obviously, and then a bit of a kerfuffle at the end. But we'll get that. Don't want to spoil it for anyone.
No,
We'll get them
we'll get
entertained
there.
here.
Yeah,
We'll get them entertained. We'll let them
keep them on the hook.
maybe a part 2, might not.
You never know.
But it'll be at the end. So you have to listen to me and you talk.
Extra
talk
time.
shit here for an extra time.
I know.
At least for an hour and a half anyway, and then we'll get to last week. All right. But here, what I want to do is obviously thank you very much for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure to be coached by you over the years and obviously to get that relationship with you. But ultimately, what I want to do is I want to bring you back to your early days.
Yeah.
So I know Tim McCann, the character that is you.
Yeah.
Right? And what I want to know is, well, how would you sum yourself up?
Just like I like a laugh in life, you know. I've never been the most serious person ever. You know, I was a messer in school and class clown, and you know, always playing practical jokes, or just never took life really serious. If I'm being honest with you, you know, my dad was always going, look, you need to get an education. You need to have back then you need to have an apprenticeship. You know, so like I left school at 16 and very few GCSEs, and then went to
It's good to see that.
and I actually got a U in economics, you know what? And I actually liked economics because I liked the teacher, but
right.
the GCSE exam was in the morning. I turned up in the afternoon.
Right, okay.
I walked in and they were all over there, and I went, you missed it? I went, all right, no problem. Take it later away I went.
See you later.
And then so because we were the guinea pigs, we were the first ones to do the GCSE. So I was saying to my mum and dad, listen, an E is a pass.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter.
Here, I tried that too. My dad sits here and
So
I'm the same boat.
mine was like a thing in countdown. Vowel,
Consonant. Consonant.
I think I got a C in sports studies.
Right, okay.
Which I was over the moon about. I might have got a C in Irish. I'm not sure, but the rest were a couple of D's and E's, and I don't even know if there was an I, but there was, as I say, there was a U. But I went to a thing called Feldon Training Centre, where you went for 6 months to learn to do all these trades and then pick one. bricklaying, electrician, welding, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So did all that there, and then you're only meant to go there for 6 months, but they had a football team,
Okay.
and because it was decent, they kept me on for another 6 months after that just to stay in the team.
Right, okay.
Oh my God, sorry, what? Oh my God, worry, worker.
No.
You were getting, I don't know what you were getting. You were getting maybe 40 quid a week, and
I like the EMA for that thing.
and then you were getting
yeah,
travel
okay.
and all that kind of stuff. So it was a gift.
Right.
So I didn't really have to do anything, just turn up for matches.
What
and
were you
stuff.
specialising in though?
So I ended up specialising in like sheet metal work welding. So I ended up getting an apprenticeship in FG Wilson's,
Okay. Right.
and did that for 3 years. At the same time, I was playing for Cliftonville at the time. So I ended up doing that and ended up finishing the apprenticeship. My dad says, "You need an apprenticeship. You know, you need a trade." I don't think I've welded since the day and hour I walked out the door. I go, "When am I ever going to use that?" You know,
Get that big phaser on. That thing over there is Halloween or something.
It's just so never again. Honestly, just. But listen, I have it under my belt anyway, just in case somebody ever needs something welded.
40 years down the line.
You know,
You're
just
ready to rock.
ready to rock.
Just
Get the helmet back on and away.
Great length. What I want to touch on is you mentioned briefly is your time at Cliftonville. Did you start at Cliftonville?
No, I started at under 10. The first memory was under 10 artillery football club down in New Lodge. It was a guy called Billy Anderson. Used to drive everybody around in a minibus and under 10 football team. And it was like there was no 9 aside or 7 aside or whatever. It was just 11 aside and normal size football and away you go. And then played there for a few years and then joined Newington under kind of 14, won the Down and Connor Cup. Under 14, under 15. But then started hanging around with my mates and getting into town and playing the fruit machines and whatever, and stopped playing football for about 6 months, just when I was about 15. Just didn't bother. And a friend of mine came to me one day and says, "Look, Cliftonville's looking forward. Do you fancy coming up to training?" And I says, "I'll come up and give it a go." So I trained on the Tuesday night. Trained on the Thursday night, played against Linfield on Saturday and scored 2 goals.
No way.
And that was it. Joined Cliftonville then and I was there. I was there for 11 years from I was 15, 16 years of age. And then gradually worked my way into the kind of the reserves. You were playing for, say, the under 16s, then playing for the reserves. And then you were playing for the reserves and then making the bench for the first team and different things like that. So Billy Sinclair was a manager at the time and he gave me my debut. It was against Ballyclare or Distillery or something, and all I knew was just hard to take people on. I was lightning and quick like back then. You know, I was fast. I've kind of slowed up a wee bit. I don't understand why.
It's all
It's been me eating habits. I don't know. It's not the years, it's the mileage.
You look great, man.
So I just had this speed. Had no left foot whatsoever. Absolutely none. Couldn't do anything with my left foot. And everybody knew what way I was going to go, but I only had one trick, which was suck the defender in, scoop it over his foot, and away I went. Or just knock around one way, run around the other, or just put ball in the box. But that was all I knew, and listen, I got away with it for so long. So
You had this one thing where you could always clip a ball at full pace to the back post.
yeah, and do you know what? I find it amazing nowadays watching the Premier League in England and even watching games here that players can't cross a ball.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm talking about beating the first man. It's just a thing for me that how they can't, because there's certain areas of a pitch of where you are when you're a winger. You know, the closer you are to the byline, the more you need to lift the ball in the air.
Yeah.
You know, or depending where it is, and you try and tell people that, or try and coach people that, but it's an art, and you know, boys that are on 150, 200 grand a week in the Premier League in England can't cross a ball. I find it astonishing.
Yeah.
I really do.
Those set pieces you get at the minute, and the one thing that you always hear, especially whenever I'm at Ballymena, it's like, just beat the first man and put it into the area, and then first man headers it away from a corner or free kick, and you're like, oh,
it's the most frustrating thing because you're doing the set pieces, people think, oh, well, that's your fault, you're in charge of set pieces, but you can do all the runs and do all the things you want and have players blocking other players and front post run, back post run, whatever it may be, but if the ball doesn't go in there, then you've absolutely no chance. And you try not to put pressure on the boy that's taking it, because if you go, I better do this or Tim's going to kill me, you know, you just have to let them go. But like they do it 2 or 3 times in a row.
Let me use this. You actually used to come on alarm and be like, right, move out of the way. And then you do it, you're saying, going,
any chance, you know?
I always remember in training, you used to come on, like, I'd step aside there, I had to clip it in. It's like,
just shoot it. We ball.
Can do that? It was always Lee Lynch, remember? Hey, Lee, get it away, clip it in.
Both sides, you know what I mean? In swingers, out swingers.
You grew a left foot there.
Lee Lynch, remember? Jeez, Lee Lynch. We had a boy at Cliftonville, right? He came up from the Southern League. He was one of the teams of the 90s. I think it was the year before we won the league with Cliftonville. And he came up. His name was Fran Hitchcock. He had probably a worse dress style than yourself. He used to wear. He probably wore something like that. You can pull that off now, but he would wear these rare clothes anyway. So he would come up with a swagger, and he went up to. So he says, "I'll take the corner." No problem. So next thing I see him lining up for the corner, but he's right-footed and he's coming at it this way. I'm going, what's he doing? He tried to hit it with the outside of his boot corner, near killed himself, kicked the corner flag, kicked the ball, fell over on the ground. And that was the last time you ever seen a Fran Hitchcock, my man.
Fran retired himself.
Fran Hitchcock, the outside corner kicker, trying to whip a ball with the outside of his boot. I've never seen that in my life.
Do you know what? Imagine somebody has that videoed. If anybody can't get a France set
unbelievable. Honestly, outside of the boot, trying to take a corner. We're going, what are you even thinking here?
Was his name actually Franz?
Fran.
Oh, Fran just.
Franz. F-A-R-N. Fran Hitchcock.
Right, okay.
Good lad, like.
Yeah, nice guy.
But, terrible dress sense.
Must have just wore the wrong boot.
I think he done. I think he bought his boots and curlies. I don't know where he got them.
Want to go back in? So you started at Cliftonville. You ended up playing, was it 9 seasons? 10 seasons?
Aye. So, what year was it? 19. It would have been 1990s, probably 1980. 88, maybe it was, when I was about 16 or 15. So I joined it then, and then, as I say, gradually worked my way in. Made my debut probably around 1990. And Cliftonville back then, we're getting into all the finals, but very, very fortunate to play with some really legendary players at Cliftonville. I mean, they always talk about the Holy Trinity and at Cliftonville, the midfielders at Tommy Brazen, Jim McFadden, and Peter Murray. And I was very, very fortunate that when I got into the first team, I was playing in that 4 midfield, because back then you just played 4-4-2.
Yeah.
So I was on one side, Jim McFadden was in the other, and the 2 midfielders were Peter Murray and Tommy Brazen. And it was unbelievable. It
Good
really
duo,
was.
those two, weren't they?
Great
management duo as well.
But see, even just the crack,
yeah.
You know, Messers, I think that's where probably I had to learn it from as well, because I was probably a bit shy when I kind of went in with the senior boys. But once you got a night out and you got a couple of Budweiser in you and started singing a few songs and Neil Diamond and all that kind of stuff, it just kind of broke the ice. But I was there for a number of years, and up till about 95, we hadn't won a trophy. We hadn't won a trophy in a long, long time anyway. But we played in the Soccer Sixes at the Dundonald Icebowl,
right?
And we won it.
Okay,
right. I know this is going to sound weird. People are going,
you mean Cliftonville?
Cliftonville, right? Won the six-a-side tournament, and after that, we then started winning trophies. So in '96, we beat Glentoran in the Coca-Cola Cup final at Windsor Park. I think we beat them 3-1. I scored one and set up one. And then we won the County Antrim Shield in '97, beat Ballymena, the penalty shootout. Peter Murray was actually playing for Ballymena and missed the penalty. I know. So that year in '97, we were 1 game away from being relegated.
Right.
And we were playing Ards down at Ards, Castlereagh Park. And it was in the 93rd minute, and I managed to get in the end of a ball and fired in the roof of the net, and managed to save us from getting relegated.
Hold on, man. So just that, Tim McCann saved.
No. So we ended up scoring. So it was actually Cliftonville put on these kind of goal of the day things all the time, and it actually showed you that kind of clip.
Yeah.
So I run to the fence and going absolutely berserk, and my wife is actually on top of the fence holding onto the rails, screaming like mad. My man and dad's down there as well, just going mad. It was just berserk, because they went to every single home and away game.
Yeah.
And then, crazily enough, from being on the verge of relegation to joining the new Premier League format, and we went and won it that year.
What I can't get my head around is Cliftonville was able to play in a Soccer Six tournament. How are you allowed to play in it?
No, it was Linfield and all. It was
so clubs actually. But did this go on for like a period of time?
This was during the season.
But like, so you were just allowed to go out of your club 6 years, go play in
No,
it
was part of, it was like during the week, say a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, it was all on the one night.
Right.
And the year before, it was in Dundonald, the ice melted. Boys sliding everywhere. You were slide packing, there was water flying everywhere. It was mad. Honestly. So obviously they got it rectified the following year.
Right.
And that was the year we won it. It was 95, It was brilliant. Really, really good. Massive crowds, like, Cliftonville used to walk on the pitch. Used to be obviously loads of Linfield fans, and because it was in Dundonald, and we were all getting booed and all, because we were Cliftonville and whatever. But we showed out.
Is there any clips of this?
There's clips on YouTube and all that kind of stuff.
So the league never complained. The league was actually pushing you to go and play in the soccer sector.
Yeah. I think they were trying something different. I don't know where it was happening in England, they just seen it and they go, well, we'll try that and see if it works.
Well, they always had the Legends one in England, didn't they? Then you went back and done the 5.
So that's what I'm saying. It was really, it was a strange one.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
It actually sounds so good.
If
you actually come out during the week and go,
brilliant.
6 of us are going to play against these. And
you had your whole week. So there was probably 10. Probably just pick 10 players, 6, 4 subs, whatever it may be. Just roll on, roll off, and brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So whenever you go back to Cliftonville here, you've won your Soccer 6 tournament, right? That's your start of you winning trophies.
Yeah. As strange as it may seem, and as minimal, as it seems, It just kind of flicked a wee switch, I think, in the team that we had. Marty Quinn was the manager, and I remember in the interview afterwards, and I can picture him saying it. This might only be the Soccer Sixes to people, but this is the first trophy we've won in some 16 years, and I believe it's only a start. And he was right.
Well, how did you find him as a manager? Because obviously he's a legend in his own right, and they're kind of go in and take his management.
He was a legend as a player. He was obviously part of that famous 1979 team that won the Irish Cup. Hard man.
Intimidating man.
Yeah.
I
remember us going head to head, like at, half time in a game, he had me by the throat and I'm trying to take a swing at him and, stuff like that. That went on. As a man, motivator, like you were beating the changing room door down to get out.
He was able to get you that riled up to go fight for Clip.
Yeah, so then when you come back in from second half, maybe having a stinker in the first half and coming to blows at half time or near blows or whatever, when you come back in, you've scored, you've set one up, and he goes, worked, didn't it? But that's what I'm saying. Nowadays, it's completely different because there's boys that can't take a rollicking.
Yep.
It's just a completely different mindset nowadays, and you have to kind of watch when you shout at even a player, a senior player now, will he be able to recover from that? Because there is certain players that will go, I'll show him or whatever.
Yeah.
Or there's other players that will just go completely into their shell.
Crumble indeed.
Yeah.
How do you find doing that balance? Because you are quite a forward person in terms of how you say things. I always appreciated that about you in terms of if I was crap on a Saturday and I knew it, ultimately you know yourself. So you come in at halftime, you know you're crap, and then you come in, you're like, you're crap, you need to do better, you need to do this, and then I'm like, fair enough, you've got a point. And ultimately because you were who you were, you end up taking that from he knows what he's doing, he knows what he's talking about, he's been there, he's done it, and then it gives you a bit of confidence, as you say, but a lot of people don't do that. Right?
No, I knew when I played crap. I knew it, I don't think players enough are accountable to themselves. You always hear about people saying, look at yourself in the mirror when you walk off that pitch. And I just feel it, boys are thinking, I've done all right there. Where I'm going, well, you haven't, and because there's different standards, because, you always say, you're only as good as your last game, but when you go out and you put a performance on and your standards here, that's the way it should be all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes, everybody can have a bad game, but the likes of the work rate and chasing back and tackling, that should never change. That should always happen. Anybody can have a bad game. But there's just certain ways. And I think I learned that probably when I had my first managerial job at Distillery, managing the Premier League. I remember sitting in the change room and I remember shouting, I won't say his name, shouting at a big strapping centre forward, having the thing, and he just sat there and very sheepishly said, please don't shout at me. And I lost my mind. I had, what have I got myself into here?
Yeah.
Because then it was only then you started to realise that some players need a wee arm around the shoulder, some players need a kick. There is certain players that will need a kick up the backside, And it's just kind of getting that balance of what it is. And you got to take your hats off to, I mean, you look at David Jeffries, you look at the most successful managers, Baxter, Roy Coyle. Them boys just said how it was.
Yeah.
And you had to take it.
Yeah. But I think too, like, there's something about getting advice or getting a rallying from someone who you believe is successful.
Yeah.
And if you're with someone, I would put you in that too, and just to say, like, you've been there, you've done it, you've played.
Yeah.
And then for you to shout at me, I'd be like, I can't really respond to you because I have respect for you out of what you've done for the game and you ultimately know. Whereas if I got that from somebody else who hadn't played, I'd be like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
You haven't done it. You haven't been here. You haven't been successful.
Yeah.
Yet you're telling me how I should run off a shoulder.
And don't get me wrong, I think there's also a way to doing it. You know, I would never be condescending to anyone if I was having a go at them or whatever it is, you know, because I think it's not the right way to come across, it being condescending or speaking down to someone. I think it's just speaking level to level, man to man, and saying, listen, you were crap. Yeah. And sort it out. When you're having a stinker here, come on, pick yourself up. What are you doing? You know, kind of trying to get at that. But again, as I said, it probably sometimes, you know, I've done it in the past where I've maybe shouted onto the pitch, you know, sort it out or whatever it is. What are you doing? Or do this or whatever, you know.
It's every week, let's go.
It's probably sometimes not the right time to do it. And people may laugh, I have chilled out a wee bit. You know, I have chilled out. It could be the marijuana. I don't know. I'm already told.
Could be something.
I'm in a zen place at times now. You know, trying to, you know, listen to little podcasts and The Secret and Manifestation and all that kind of stuff, and trying to get into the zone and trying to, you know, sort of live life and thing. But it's very difficult because you can go out with the best intentions and say, I'm going to sit here, you know, for the match and just calm down, and then within the first 10 seconds you're off your seat. Yeah, you know,
you can see
you just get wrapped up in the game, and it's not through intention. It's just the pure roller coaster ride of football.
Passion,
and
you have a passion for it,
and that's why we all love it. You know what I mean? We love it. You know, and I've had a few running my managers because of the way of me getting on the sideline, because I have been showing that kind of passion. But listen, that's just me, and I do curtail it because you know, if a man says, "Tim, listen, you calm it down."
Yeah.
And say, and say, right, no problem. And working with Daki and Paddy at the minute, it's brilliant, you know, because it's just, we all have a great understanding, and we know who to go out into the technical area and do a bit of shouting, and we kind of mix it up between ourselves.
Get carded, just
just trying to mix it up.
Rotate each, a wee midfield three. What I want to do is I want to bring you back just to your Cliftonville days. You said about being successful. You won 3.
I won the Cliftonville end, won the County Anthem Shield, won the Coca-Cola Cup County Anthem Shield, and won the league title.
So you were one of the first people to do that in a long time.
88 years.
That's insane.
It was crazy, and I don't think we didn't have the best individual players. Yeah, we were all good. We were like street footballers. Right. You know, we weren't. Jerry Flynn was probably skillful. You know, you players are like Mickey Donnelly and Marty Tabb. I think Marty Tabb was 35, 36 at that time. You know, and when Marty first came in a couple of years before, you know, he just instilled something into the team as well, a real professionalism, a real will to win. Mickey Donnelly, you know, always fighting, and, you know, there was this kind of sense that, you know, everyone's against us, and we kind of circled the wagons and just kind of, you know, went for it. And even, you know, people were going, well, I don't think we lost 2 games in the bounce that season. And we were beating teams like really good Glenavon teams, really good Portadown teams. You know, all the teams were top teams. Linfield, Glentoran, you know, Crusaders had won the league 2 years previous, twice in a row. You know, so I think it was tough. But I don't think we even spoke about it in the changing room as it was going on. I think it was only close to the end. We were away to Oma Town, and we couldn't score. And we had to win. And I think we got a corner in the last couple of minutes of a game. And I think Gary Slaney took it and went right into the net, straight from the corner. And it was just a sense of relief. Yeah. So because then we knew what we had to do. Yeah. And then there was obviously the farce of the last day. You know, how was ever allowed to happen in modern football that 2 teams going for the league, us and Linfield, they allowed Linfield to kick off an hour after us, which was absolute crazy.
No way.
Yeah. So we'd kicked off and we knew we had to beat Glentoran.
Did you get moved forward? Or did you kick off a 3 and then Linfield won a 4? Or?
Something like that. I can't even remember what it was. But there was an hour's difference. So we were playing Glentoran and a resurgent Glentoran team who had just won the Irish Cup the year before under Roy Coyle had just come in, and they were on the up. He'd really come in I think he came in at Christmas time and had really turned them around. And so we needed to win to win the Irish League. If we had a drew, then we had to wait to see what the Linfield score was. And if Linfield had won, then Linfield would have won the league. So we went 1-0 up. And then it was one each. You couldn't have fit any more people into Solitude. I think it was like 7,000 people around the place. All my friends, all my family. It was just, I mean, actually getting goosebumps just thinking about it now. It was so surreal. You know, the game, I have no recollection of the game. Of any state. I remember the goal in the celebration when we went 1-0 up. I have absolutely no recollection of it whatsoever. It's just mind-boggling. And then we sat in the changing room and had a huge carry-out.
Right.
Just everybody just drinking beers in the changing room.
Yep.
And the whole stadium stayed there for a whole other hour, listening to Radio Ulster, listening to the Linfield match live. And then all we were doing was just waiting for that final whistle. And there's footage of us, I think UTV had cameras in, we're all stopping our tins of harp. And then all of a sudden you just hear the crowd go cheering, and we all just went bananas, just jumping around. There was beer flying everywhere, and I actually bred a good clobber. I actually,
right, okay.
Everybody was in their tracksuits, and I had a change of clothes and all. I was getting out.
You're ready to go.
I was out.
Here, that's the way that sums you up.
So I was getting out. You had the jeans, pair of chinos, a nice wee Kangol top and all. I was ready to go, and next thing it was beer flying everywhere, and I'm going, oh, I don't have to go out in this, but no, it was fantastic because my mum and dad were there, and I remember coming off the pitch with the trophy and met my dad at the tunnel, and the two of us were hugging, and it was unbelievable. It was incredible. I think I partied for 3 months.
I'm sure you did.
Didn't go back to work.
Just quit.
I didn't go back to work. It just took a summer off. That was
a welding. You were in there having to go back.
It was something. You can never forget. As I said, first time Cliftonville won the league in 88 years, you know, and it was a big deal, like, at the time.
I always remember at that stage, obviously I wasn't born at that, but the old pitch, I always remember being on that just before it got changed, the old grass pitch, and it was like a den. It was a complete den.
It was a tough place for teams to go, you know, and we kind of tried to make it a fortress as well, and it was a heavy pitch at times, but you just get used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, see, that year, there's a place on the Cahill Road called the Waterworks.
Yep.
And there's a little bit of grass, and there was 2 little small nets on either side, just for kids. We trained there that year. We didn't know where to train. So we trained using the lights coming off the Cahill Road on that there, and that's where we trained.
No way.
Mad.
Is that the one facing the wee police station?
Facing the police station, and there's a playground there, and then there's a big
put like a wee gate around it, and then changed in like a wee park.
Yeah, and if you look now, you just see all the ducks and the swans sitting there, trying to get the worms. We trained in that the year we won the league.
So every Tuesday and Thursday, people just down up a Cliftonville Road.
We're there kicking lumps out of each other.
Incredible.
Brilliant.
Oh, mate, that's different.
It is. And listen, you just. I mean,
you think? Sorry to jump in. Do you think that ultimately helped you? That you were like, we didn't have this place to go. We don't have these mad facilities that we can go train on. We just get stuck on this wee pitch.
Yeah,
we're going to play football together, have a bit of crack, have that team camaraderie, and then we're just going to go out and play.
And it was there's a White House, and after every game, everybody would. They don't do it anymore. We would all go off for a drink and sit there after every game. Win, lose or draw, you would go up the stairs and you would get together as a team. So like we all hung around together. We went out and socialised together. We drank together, and even the opposition team, you know, at Windsor, it didn't matter where you were. Everybody went up and had a pint after the game. That's just the way it was. But that's kind of lost now in football as well. I know I'm kind of getting off the spectrum, but it's one thing that kind of goes off because players had respect for each other. You go out on the pitch at Windsor Park and you just kick lumps out of each other, and then you go up the stairs and have a beer with Spike Ferguson or Noel Bailey or whatever it was, and everybody just stood and
had a bit of crack.
Yeah, and it was forgot about.
Yes, that's it.
You know, because it didn't then drag on.
Yeah.
You know, it was forgot about. Whatever happened on the pitch happened on the pitch.
Do you think that, and not trying to be critical here, but people are trying to be too professional? I know that some people maybe just don't drink.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough. People don't have to indulge in these things. But one thing that we done at Larne at the time that we were there for 2 years, we would all go up to the bar after the new social club got put in. About 8 or 9 of us went up, had 1 or 2 pints, and then just left. And if you didn't want to,
and there was boys that were jailed, maybe had a Coke or whatever it was. It, you know, it was fine. But I think it was always important for supporters maybe to see her, but to get that bond with the fans, and also the team as well. So I think if you have a bond, the fans have a bond with you, and you have a bond with them, and everybody's close knit, then I think that's one of the reasons as well we were successful at Larne at that time as well.
Yeah. What I want to do is I want to just go back to the last time you played at Cliftonville. You were coming up to December, and Glentoran came in.
Yeah, so Glentoran and Coleraine came in for me. I'd been on trial. There were a couple of English clubs that came in. Previous to that, I'd been on trial over Blackpool. I got my first cap for Northern Ireland, played against Portugal, and it was 1997, and then Notts County were going to come in and buy me, and I was over at Blackpool. Sam Allardyce was manager. But listen, I think I was 25 or 20, whatever age it was at the time, and it wasn't for me.
Right. You were too busy. I'm part time. I can go drink at the week.
But it wasn't for me. So I went over there and played a couple of trial games, played against Man City and Burnley and all that kind of stuff. And as I say, trained the first team. Sam Allardyce man and did well, but picked up a wee knock on my calf. But I knew that I had a couple of big games coming up for Cliftonville, so that was always in the back of my mind. And I ended up coming home early.
Right.
Just leaving. Just coming home early. Just said, look, get me a flight home.
Right.
And that was me. And then, as I said, I was meant to go. Notts County were meant to come in and see me, but I tore my ligaments in my ankle, and that kind of fell through. And then I just think sometimes if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and it wasn't. It just wasn't meant to be. I think I was always meant to marry my wife because a number of years later her father died. And so it kind of had to be. I just think that was always, we had been out each other from we were very, very young at a youth club, and from we were 18 years of age. And I just think that was always, we were always meant to be together and meant to stay together. And I just don't think it was meant to. I think it was just meant to play Irish League football, and I have no qualms about that.
You don't sit back looking on like I have regrets. Like
not in the slightest, not in the slightest. But just going back to Cliftonville, so a couple of rumours flying around that the Danes were interested in different things, and so obviously this was an issue with Cliftonville fans at the time, or they had came to me, and I went round every senior player. We'd just won the league, but hadn't started the season off 1998. Or 99 season very well to defend the title. We went to Kasichi, and I think we could be 13 in aggregate or something.
Right.
Probably didn't help. We were all out boozing the night before a game, but no was out at the time. Vodka and Red Bull had just come out.
Right, okay.
And we had all these rooms in this smashing hotel. And the beers were had size in the hotel, but many bars in every room, all filled with Vodka and Red Bull.
Right.
It's a disaster, man.
Disaster.
So we could beat 8-0.
Right, okay.
Away from home. Like City the year before, I played in the group stages, they beat Man United and stuff, so they were a decent side. But so the club had kind of let a few boys go that won the league with us and different things, and I still loved playing for Cliftonville. So it came around December time, or November time, it kind of came around, and I went and I met Roy Coyle and Jimmy Brown. I went with my dad, and one time, and then my wife came with me, and we just sat there and just talked about Glentoran. At that time, obviously, Glentoran's a huge club, and Cliftonville was all I'd ever known. I didn't know any different, because I used to walk to training to Cliftonville from my mum and dad's house in the Cave Road. And that's all I knew. So it was a massive step, and it's kind of still in the middle of the troubles as well, so it was, going from a North Belfast lad going over to play for the Glentoran. I spoke to Linfield and spoke to David Jeffries as well. Nothing ever came of it, believe it or not. But I actually spoke to David Jeffries in Extravision.
David didn't get this popcorn.
I never got the thing. And he says, look, Tim, he says, as much as I'd love to sign you, it's not going to happen. I says, look, David, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You know, and that was just being truthful. And the two of us just were totally honest with each other. And I met Ronnie McFall in the Europa Hotel.
So did
I
met him.
Yeah.
Freaked me out, big Ronnie.
So that wasn't going to work. And then, as I said, Coleraine, I don't know who the manager was. But it was just it was always going to be kind of Glentoran. So, as I said, I spoke to the senior players. I spoke to Mickey Donnelly, Marty Tabb, Stevie Small, Jerry Flynn. Spoke to them all just to say, look, guys, what's your thoughts here? And they said, go.
Right.
Go. You're never going to get an opportunity like this again. So before I had signed, Marty Quinn took me to the local bar in Glengormy. It's called the Glen Inn. One Sunday, right? And got me shit-faced. Got the two of us rode off, right? And then pulled out a contract and says, here, what do you think about saying that? Now, the two of us were rubbered, you know what I mean? Two of us were absolutely rubbered. And then my missus came in and says, right, let's go out. And I think, so the deal was I didn't want to move for nothing. I think it was the Bosman rule at the time where you could have just went. And I could have waited to January, but it was like the 4th of December or something, and it was 3 weeks early. And Cliftonville says, look, Glentoran says, if you go now, we'll give Cliftonville £5,000.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have had to buy me anyway.
Yeah.
So they said, we'll give them £5,000. And so I didn't want to leave and not pick Cliftonville anyway, just to get me 3 weeks early. So they give them 3 weeks early, they give them £5,000. I signed on the Friday and played against Linfield in front of 10,000 people in my debut at the Oval. And it was surreal. So when I walked into the change room, I met them all at the Park Avenue Hotel. That's where everybody went. And again, I knew a few of the boys, but didn't really know. But I ended up striking a real bond with Colin Nixon and got a real friendship with him. And we've stayed friends ever since. But when I walked into the change room, on the number 7 jersey was a picture of the Pope, a wee pennant of the Pope on the number 7 jersey. And Coyle just says, I just wanted you to feel at home. I says, thanks very much, Gaffer, because you weren't allowed to call him Roy. So when I was doing the interview after it signed, I was going on Roy this and Roy that, and he goes, hey son, you've just signed. Call me Gaffer. I says, no problem.
No problem, Gaffer.
That's the way he talked.
Yeah.
Hey son. And so, yeah, and again, as I said, worked my way into the team there, and they ended up winning 2 league titles back to back.
Yeah,
the 2 different clubs. So it just worked out well, and I think it was coming into my prime in my career. I was 27 at the time, and just everything worked. I ended up winning, another 15 trophies.
See, I just want to touch on this. When you sign for the Glens, right, and the Friday comes, you sign that line, you go meet all the boys, you play against Linfield, against 10,000 people. What's that like? Because the crowds back then were it was like animals.
Oh, it was yeah. I was getting called everything, obviously, by the Linfield ones, and they were shouting everything. It was, and I fed off that.
Yeah.
Because if they weren't shouting anything, then they didn't respect you. So I fed off that. We ended up getting beat 1-0. Pete Beattie handled the ball, and I was at my first game, and I still see it now. He handled the ball, and I'm shouting at him, having to go at him, and I was only in the team,
Yeah.
But it was a perfect fit. I mean, I can't explain it. When you try and tell people about the club, Glentoran, and what it means to play for them, I got it like that. I got it straight away. I got it within a week. I got it within a couple of days. And it just clicked with me what he instilled that, Roy Coyle instilled that into me, what it was to play for Glentoran. But when I moved, I had to get a blue bus to get a drink.
Right.
Because, you were getting hounded in town. I used to go to Ardown to go to the Fla, me and my mates. So after I'd signed, whatever it was, played the other half of the season, went up down to Flower the following year. I was getting in and having a drink, whatever, and walked in the bar and music just stopped.
Serious?
My mate was in the toilet and you could hear these couple of guys go see that so-and-so Tim McCann's in there. Mum will go and sort it out. So next thing he just says, right, let's go. And I just end up back out again. But obviously there were still Cliftonville fans that get on with. It's all over and done with now. Like my daughter plays for Cliftonville and I go back from time to time. There was a Irish Cup final last year and stuff with a lot of the ex-players. But at that time, even getting into Belfast, the centre of Belfast, to go for a beer, you know, you would have boys. Like I was sitting in a bar one time and it wasn't fair because I was with mates that weren't really into football. I was just sitting having a beer and somebody would lean over to try and shake your hand and I'd lean over and they would just crack you. And then I'd bounce over and end up in the fight and whatever it was. And it was just mayhem, you know. It's just crazy.
You know, your face turned around, right?
We were with Tiernan one night. We're in Milk.
Right.
And seeing these guys coming around a corner and whatever, and they're going, Tim, waving like that there, and I just put my hand up and was giving that. It was about 1 a.m. And come over and he says, what about you? And whatever. And he went to put his hand out. As he went to put his hand out, he just kicked me right between the legs. And as he's done that, I've held his hand and I've hit him. And then they just come out everywhere. Yeah. And everybody just split and run. And I remember there was about 4 of them chasing me around a car outside Milk. And I was going, see if they stop and think and don't go back the other way.
Run into them.
So the next thing that the police came in and they ended up stopping it and breaking it all up anyway and whatever. But it was just mayhem. It just
did Tiernan just run away at this stage?
I'd never seen him move so quick.
Oh, sharp up.
And then he ended up coming back and I think my mate ended up getting arrested for shouting or whatever it was But it was just crazy. They had the guy that obviously assaulted me or whatever. But I remember seeing him. The cops had him like that there, and I was going, "That's him." And the police were going, "You shut your mouth, McCann." And I was going, "How do you know me?" And all blah blah blah. And then I just broke free from him and just went straight for the boy and just banging him while the police were holding him. And then I kid
free shot, free shot.
But just crazy times, you know. But listen. I'm still here, get on with it, and probably shouldn't be saying half that stuff like that anyway.
Sure.
But no, listen, it was good times. But as I say, to play in a game like that, which I'd never kind of probably been involved in a big two was incredible, absolutely incredible. I'll never forget as long as I live, and I do remember that game. You know, there's a lot of games I don't remember, but I remember that one.
See, the fact that you played for Cliftonville against Linfield, Cliftonville against Glens, and then you've played Glens against Linfield on Boxing Day. Without a shadow of a doubt, is it the biggest?
Aye, it would be, aye. Now, there was a game, see, when I was playing for Cliftonville, we had to play every game away at Windsor because there was a security risk that Linfield wouldn't come to Solitude.
Okay.
And then in 1998, early 98, I don't know when it was, Linfield came back to Solitude for the first time in 30 years. And it was like 11 o'clock in the morning kickoff.
Right. Hoping people were sleeping.
Rammed. Right? Rammed. And the Cliftonville ones there's a big, called the Cage, a big sign up saying Ced Meal Falcha, Linfield, 1,000 welcomes, Linfield. It was unbelievable. I think they went 1-0 up. Eddie Murphy or something scored, and I scored an equaliser or something, whatever, being interviewed by French TV and all. If you look it up, you'll see.
Is that where you put the accent on?
I see it go, you know, Tim McCann, you know.
And then you tried to do it back.
I tried to do it. So it was crazy, crazy stuff. But I know Glentoran Linfield, massive. Yeah. Massive. Yeah, just really, really good games. But again, equally as good as well because Cliftonville Linfield was always, especially when it was back in the during the troubles, the heyday and all that kind of stuff as well, but I just didn't realise till you play in that game at Glentoran Linfield how much the fans actually hate each other. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's a lot of respect between the players and there's blood and thunder on the pitch. But as I said, 2 sets of ears upstairs and had a beer afterwards or whatever, whereas the fans were just crazy.
See, whenever you look at the overall aspect of those games and stuff that you've played in, so your whole career at Cliftonville, your whole career at the Glens, pretty much.
Yeah.
Where do you think that you got the best out of yourself?
It's a difficult one.
because you became a legend at both clubs.
Aye, it's kind of difficult. I think I've made my name at Cliftonville. You know, I was given a chance by Billy Sinclair, then Frankie Parks, and then, you know, Marty Quinn, and Marty Quinn used to get stuff out of you, and you know, I was a winger, but you were kind of always tackling or wrestling or fighting with someone or whatever, you know, and you know, you're playing against players like Glenn Dunlop, John Easton, Mark Lendenny, and these were all tough tackling, so you had to be tough. You couldn't have been a winger who was soft. You had to mix it, and I preferred that. You know, it kind of worked for me. It's difficult to say. I mean, I think I probably learnt more as I got older, as you would anyway. So when I moved when I was 27, there was so much of the game that I still didn't know, because it wasn't really much. It was the first time that, you know, it wasn't really much about getting into systems and, you know, different things that you needed to do within a shape or tuck in, and that I kind of learned at Glentoran under Roy Coyle about certain things that you had to do and to make yourself better. It wasn't just about running up the line, putting cross in. It was also about, you know, getting the ball in, flicking around the corner, whatever it may be, starting to use your head, playing 1-2s. If you don't need to take a man on, don't take a man on, just put the ball in the box.
Yeah.
You know, it's just little different things. And as I said, because you were playing in Europe then every year, because Glentoran were either winning the Irish Cup or they were winning the league. So you were in Europe every single year, which was also really, really good. And you always had your clobber ready.
You were ready.
Oh, you were ready.
It's packed.
You know, Nicky's doing stretches. I was with McCall Nixon, and I'm ironing my shirt for that night. You know.
Colin, what are you doing? Get up.
Here, come on, you.
The iron's hot, Colin.
Are you ready? So, you know, but that was kind of the mentality, because you were never really expected to win.
Yeah.
Out in Europe. You were playing things like Wisla Krakow and, you know, Helsinki, and, you know, they were really, really good teams, you know, back then, and you were always tough. I remember even playing with Cliftonville. We were in a group stage, playing against Standard Liège, Stuttgart. We were away in Israel. It was one of those European competitions, the first of its kind even back then. But very, very fortunate to play in these countries, you know, Copenhagen, Aalborg, you know. So it was an eye opener. As I said, I learned quite a lot from when I was 27 till I finished playing.